So welcome back to the channel. So today we are going to look into this topic whereby ICE, which is the immigration control in America, basically went after and detained a 64-year-old Iranian lady that has been in America for 47 years.
We're learning more about the ICE arrest of a Lakeview woman who has lived in New Orleans for nearly 50 years.
She's accused of ignoring a deportation order and is in ICE detention while her family tries to free her. WGNO's Ashley Hamilton is here with the latest. Ash.
Good evening, Susie and Kurt. The family of Donna Kashanian says, had it not been for their neighbors coming to tell them that she was being taken away, they would have never known. They're now trying to find answers on why she was detained, claiming she always follows up with appointments.
She doesn't deserve this.
Family and friends of Donna Kashanian are trying to wrap their heads around why ICE took her after living in the United States for 47 years with no criminal record.
She was handcuffed and put into a just plain gray pickup truck.
Neighbor Sarah Garrick and her husband watched it all happen in real time, stating ICE agents gave no explanation.
We saw her worst fears, but we were shocked. I mean, it was in front of her house, and she was in her yard. My husband ran out to try to talk to her.
Her daughter, Caitlin Milne, says she was able to track her mother's phone to know where she was. Kashanian was taken to a jail in Hancock, Mississippi, then transferred to Gina and Bazille, Louisiana detention centers.
We've been able to call back and forth now that she's actually settled at Bazille. She sounds okay. She's more concerned for me and my dad. We're just trying to do everything we can to get her out.
Originally, Kashanian came to the U.S. on a student visa at the age of 17. She reportedly applied for asylum countless times, but was denied. Milne says in 1978, a judge granted her mother a stay of deportation, which allowed her to remain in.
During the time I think she was in America, I think that's also the time, if I'm not wrong, when the Iranian Revolution occurred. Yeah, 1978, that's the time the Ayatollah took over from the US-backed dictators. So at this point, I feel like, dude, like you just wrong place, wrong time sometimes, and like just a streak of just really, really, really bad cards. But at the end of the day, let's just continue.
In the U.S. under supervision.
She had her next appointment for July 21st. The only appointment that she might not have been able to walk through the door for was 2024 when INS was saying no one can come in.
But that is being disputed by ICE, who claimed she was ordered by a judge to leave the U.S. and did not. Milne says now they're looking for an immigration attorney to represent her.
They're going over her file and basically telling us if they have the capacity to handle that case or not. And unfortunately, we've gotten more no's than yeses.
Milne says they're working with legislators for help and are waiting to hear back on when they can actually visit her. Susie, Kurt.
All right, Ashley, keep us posted.
Yeah, I need more details. So I found The Guardian, which actually has the story. Donna Kashanian, 64, and a community service volunteer, arrived in 1978 on a student visa and has no criminal record. Kelly Milner says her mother, that's her daughter, that's the Iranian lady's daughter, says her mother is usually always up fasting in the morning, hours before the rest of the family. She enjoys being productive in the quiet hours around sunrise, and it's an especially optimal time to do yard work when the rest of her New Orleans neighbors are still asleep, and she can count on peacefully completing her chores. Gardening and rearranging the shed is how an average morning would go for Madonna or Donna Kashanian, a 64-year-old Iranian mother, wife, home cook, PTA member, and a lifelong community service volunteer. She always says, I'm already done with most of my day before everyone is awake. Complaining to her, said Caitlin, 32. It's always done with love, she says, as her mother adores taking care of others and would wake up every morning excited to do just that. But I want to find out what happened. So in the morning of Sunday, 22nd June, it didn't go like every other morning. In the early hours while her husband, Russell Milner, was sleeping inside the house, Kashanian was approached in her yard by plainclothes men who identified themselves as Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents. That's ICE agents. She was quickly arrested without her family being told anything. Oh my, that was some vigilante stuff. They only found out after the neighbor who happened to be awake witnessed the arrests and notified them. Whoa, it means ICE was actually watching her and knew it wasn't any other raid. They watched her. According to the neighbor, Kashanian was handcuffed before even taken away by multiple agents. Details Kashanian herself was later able to confirm to her family. Her arrest involved 3 unmasked cars, including one that appeared to be a lookout, which her neighbor and family believe had been watching for a moment when Kashanian was outside and alone, and confirming that, yeah, this is her routine. And I don't think that was the first time that car was actually there. That car has always been there and was basically spotting her. That's what I would assume, considering the time and the almost pinpoint precision of how they actually got her. So Kashanian was able to call her family about an hour later when she relayed to them what had happened and where she was. ICE officers told her that she was being taken to a holding center in Mississippi before eventually being transferred back to a detention center in Louisiana. After that Sunday morning call, her husband and daughter didn't hear from her again until Tuesday. That's heartbreaking. She remains in ICE custody in Bastille, Louisiana, despite having no criminal record. The timing of Kashanian's detention was just hours after the U.S. airstrike in Iran, a move that coincided with the ramping up of deportations of Iranians by Trump's administration. It also comes amid a nationwide crackdown by ICE, which has seen tens of thousands of migrants detained, often by masked agents, which plunged many communities into fear and also outraged civil liberties advocates. I think after the bombs were dropped, there was a big worry about sleeper cells in America. So I think they were just indiscriminately arresting a lot of Iranians. And especially if your documents were not that clear, that means you're in the system and they can find you much easier compared to, let's say, Iranians who have already been naturalized and they're citizens. So those ones are, well, not that easy to track, and also you don't know where they are. And on top of that, you will actually receive resistance, So this was actually path of least resistance for ICE. So Kashanian arrived in the US in 1978 on a student visa and lived in the country ever since. She applied for asylum, citing fears of prosecution due to her father's ties to the US-backed Shah of Iran. As I was saying before. So that was where this problem started. Her asylum request was ultimately denied, but she granted a stay of removal on the condition she complies with immigration requirements, a condition her family says she always met. So Kashanian was so careful about regularly attending her meetings with immigration officials that she once checked in from Southern Carolina during the Hurricane Katrina time. Despite having to juggle constant immigration checks, Kashanian remained devoted to the community service work. She's a volunteer with Habitat for Humanity, helping build homes. She worked with Nola Tree Project. She was a PTA volunteer for her daughter's elementary school. I think she even has a YouTube cooking channel. Okay, so the rest just talks about the complexity that she's facing. It talks about how the Trump administration was a factor in this whole situation. So what was the justification for ICE to actually arrest her? Well, number one, I think just during this whole Iran, Israel, and US debacle, I think every Iranian's phone or any kind of affiliation to Iran, or even people who basically pass through Tehran or travelers as well, their devices were being monitored. So ICE justification was that ICE New Orleans stated that Kashanian was served an order to show cause on November 17th, 1983, charging deportability for overstaying her admission. That's for her student visa. And also ICE says that it's a privilege and it's not a right, and it's reserved for those who respect the US laws. ICE also asserted that she was ordered by a judge to depart the US and did not comply, implying her arrest was predictable eventually. Her initial student visa authorized her stay until the May 31st of 1983. While she changed her status to that of a spouse of a citizen student, her asylum claim was ultimately denied. Her first marriage by the courts was reported as improper and fraudulent, that she got married so that she can stay in the States. And this complicated her green card application after getting married to her current husband, that's Russell Mill, in 1990. The original deportation order was from 1983. So this was 7 years after the deportation order. That's when she got married. And the original deportation order from 1983 was also upheld by the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals in 2001. So advocates are actually saying that despite the denials of asylum, Kashanian was granted a stay of removal on the condition that she complies with immigration requirements, which she actually did. She was very diligent about attending her regular check-ins with immigration, and She had no criminal records, and her husband says that she did everything right and was meeting her obligation. She highlighted her contributions and everything, the whole part where she's a PTA member. So immigration rights advocates are saying this is basically an overreach by ICE, and also it's racial profiling. I would say this whole Iran situation pretty much put her on the government lens. But before that, if there was nothing happening with Iran and the States and Israel, she would have just continued with her life. The only issue is the part where for 47 years, like I would assume that at a certain point, you should approach a lawyer, because I don't think that's a good quality of life. It's good to approach a lawyer and find out what are your options at this point, what can you do, where can you go, and the likes. Because I do think at a certain point, there is somewhere, or there is I don't want to say loophole, or I'd like to say there is a way where they can actually be able to find something that actually would work for her. Considering this, if I'm not wrong, there's people who entered America illegally and managed to get their citizenships later on. Like, I'd say probably takes 20 years or something like that of them being a fully functioning member of society and paying their taxes and not having any crimes, which she has, and she has even more years. So I don't know. So I think this is a case whereby she just happened to be Iranian at the wrong place at the wrong time. So her immigration status and her being Iranian, and at that particular time, or this particular time, put her in the American government's lenses, and yeah, that was bound to happen. So, and it's not only her. According to the National Iranian American Council, ICE was arresting a lot of Iranians, like a lot. And they're basically complaining, and they're saying, why are you just coming after Iranians just like that? And in my head, I'm thinking, yeah, like that whole thing whereby the Americans are afraid of retaliations inside, and they're looking at Iranians mostly as maybe sleeper cell agents and stuff like that. And if you ask me, it's a very simplistic way of looking at it. Most sleeper cells agents, especially backed by a state, wouldn't be even highlighted in the system, or don't even have fingerprints, kind of thing. That's my assumption. So in general, I do understand there's a law as far as immigration is concerned that has to be followed. And on top of that, the problem with immigration is that, or immigration laws in most countries, doesn't have a statute of limitation where you can say, okay, I was illegal for this amount of time, and once this amount of time, like you see like cases or books or something like that, or accounting, after this amount of time, I will not be illegal anymore. I can approach this thing afresh. That's not the case. That thing lasts. It's like debt. So, and it needs to be sorted out one way or another. And the worst part is different regimes will approach your case in very different ways, and also different circumstances. If I was in the States and my papers are not okay, and let's say, unfortunately, America has an issue with my country or where I'm coming from, I'm going to be in an ICE detention center in a matter of days, if not hours. At that point, you just know, crap. I hope that this lady and this family are able to find a solution, because at the end of the day, 47 years in the US, that's a lot. That's pretty much your whole life. And being deported back to Iran, I don't know if, and she left at the age of 17. Most of the people she knows are also just as old as her, or not even there anymore. She doesn't have a life there. I would say she either get a lawyer, find a way to be able to sort this one out, or maybe move to another country which might be favorable for her around close to America, maybe Canada or Mexico, where her family doesn't have to make a huge commitment as far as being together. That's my plan B, C's kind of thing if I was in her situation. That's my simplistic way of looking at it. But in general, I hope for the best for this family. And thank you for your time. See you on the next one.